freezing cold outside and I was dressed in all the warm clothes that I could possibly find. I was lying on the floor of a bombed out hospital in Beirut in Lebanon. I'd left the United Nations following the massacre of 2,000 women and children in that camp. I was a 33-year-old nurse and I continued to stay in the camp and work there with the Palestinian nurses. And I was dealing with many shattered people as well as nurses. There was a lot of emergency assistance which flows into a situation like that. But it was very obvious that the shattered health workers needed help to re-establish their working lives. At the time, I was working with Norwegian solidarity workers, and I was really impressed by the way that they were working with the Palestinians in a really lovely sense of solidarity with them. And I thought, well, Australian workers should be doing some of that. I was inspired by those workers, just the notion of their solidarity. I came back to Australia, did some talking around, and eventually met with Cliff Dolan, the president of the ACTU. He liked the idea and he took it to the ACTU executive, and they approved it towards the end of 1983. In January 1984, we had our first board meeting. Soon after, with the help of Australian trade unions and nurses, we were able to start our first training program with Palestinian nurses. APHEDA's work skills training programs were up and running.
Well, today I tried to talk about, in a sense, the dominant narrative that we face as people on the left, which I think is disempowering, and then the alternative story about solidarity, which is the piece that gives us hope for change. We have to, as workers, be part of shoring up profit rates. We have to also make a contribution to global competitiveness, and we do that at cost to us as workers globally, not just in Australia. This is very demoralising and demobilising, but I think the alternative story is one of solidarity and one of social solidarity that is key to the organisation I work for, Union Aid Abroad.
Union Aid Abroad, APHEDA, on behalf of Australian unionists, has played a crucial role in campaigning for social justice all around the world. Today, Union Aid Abroad APHEDA has over 60 projects in 16 countries and has worked everywhere from Eritrea in Northern Africa to Laos in Southeast Asia to the Solomons in the Pacific. We focus on projects that provide the most practical benefit to the communities that we work with. In long-term refugee situations, such as in the Middle East or on the Thai-Burma border, we focus on healthcare training or agricultural skills training so that people have reliable access to food or to basic healthcare. In poor countries like East Timor, we focus on literacy skills so that people can fully participate in their own villages and so that they can assist their own children's education. We support workers' efforts to organise to ensure safety at work. For example, in Vietnam, against asbestos use, and in Cambodia, assisting beer promotion workers who work in the entertainment industry. We believe equality for women is essential for lasting change and for improving standards of living for women. For example, when women have the chance to learn to read and write, they're able to earn a living and bring an income into the family, which obviously benefits the whole family as well as benefits the women themselves. In many communities, Union Aid Abroad helps fund women's leadership programs to help build skills so that women can fully participate in their workplace, their village and their refugee community.
Union Aid Abroad APHEDA has tried to do this over 30 years to build social solidarity between workers in Australia and internationally.
As unionists, we know that a living wage is crucial to lifting living standards around the world. And that's why Union Aid Abroad will always put workers' rights at the centre of its work. Union Aid Abroad APHEDA is our global justice agency. We, as unionists, get to set its directions and priorities. For 30 years we've done this. Let's make sure it's here for another 30 years.
So our aim is to build working people's power around the globe to campaign for livelihoods with dignity. So we do this by providing financial aid and training in a model of partnership with local organisations. As we look to the future of APHEDA, our priority must lie in contributing to building stronger labour movements, environmental and Indigenous movements here in Australia and in the countries and regions in which we work. We must draw the connections between the national and international under corporate neoliberalism so that we become core to the Australian trade union movement in the coming decade. We must also play our part in building bigger and more organised organisational memberships that can act politically to fight inequality and injustice here at home and in support of those internationally. If we believe social change occurs through organised social and labour movements, then we have to make our own contribution to building them here.
As union members, we know that the values of justice and equality are at the very core of the fight for a better life. And in an increasingly globalised world, we know that the fight for workers' rights in one country is a fight for workers' rights right around the world, in every country. Union Abroad APHEDA has these strong values at its very heart. And we know that when it works with others, it respects their skills, their knowledge, their experiences, wherever they come from. Donating or supporting Union Abroad APHEDA is not charity, it's solidarity.
But I might just leave you with a brief challenge for the rest of the weekend for consideration and debate, and it's on the question of organising. I'd like to put out the challenge that we should ditch, it seems a bit bad saying that as a unionist, but we should ditch at least half of the policy officers and researchers of all the organisations we know, change their jobs to organisers. A well-argued research paper won't win the fight without organised people acting for change. For example, I think about the failure of all of us to change the debate on affordable housing and private rental, affordable rental in Australia. We are awash with articulate housing policy advocates in NGOs, with well-written blogs, housing researchers and academics churning out the policy solutions that have been well articulated for years. But we have had no campaign, ever, and we still don't. We're starting to see the large-scale sell-off of public housing, starting with Millers Point. And despite the good recent efforts there to campaign, we and our NGOs in particular are well behind the 8 ball. We've failed to build organising into the plan to win. But it's never too late, and we must make that shift, that wholesale commitment to shift our limited resources in that direction. Thank you.